The resignation letter sat on Juliet's desk like a loaded gun. She had stared at it for 3 hours, the cursor blinking at the end of the final sentence, taunting her with the finality of what she was about to do. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of her Gangnam office, Seoul was waking up, a gray, weeping morning that matched the hollow ache in her chest. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Min-ho standing on the steps of the hotel, looking like a king watching his kingdom burn. She felt the ghost of his lips on hers, the phantom weight of his hand on her waist. She heard his voice, rough with desperation, telling her she was his future. Lies, she told herself, taking a sip of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Or if not lies, then dangerous truths. Sujin's words had played on a loop in her mind all night. The exotic distraction, the rebellion against his family, the inevitable end. Juliet had built her life on logic, on hard work, on seeing the world as it was, not as she wished it to be. And logic dictated that a foreign consultant did not live happily ever after with a Korean conglomerate heir who was already promised to someone else. Logic dictated that she walk away before she became collateral damage in a war between powerful families. She printed the letter. The sound of the paper sliding into the tray was sharp and final. She wasn't going to email it. She owed him and herself the dignity of doing this face-to-face. She would walk into Yongsan Holdings, hand him the termination notice, agree to the non-disclosure terms, and then she would book the first flight back to New York. It was the smart choice, the safe choice. So why did it feel like she was cutting out her own heart? The atmosphere at Yongsan Holdings was brittle. Usually, the glass and steel lobby hummed with efficient energy, but today, the silence was heavy. Security guards nodded to her, but their eyes lingered too long. The receptionist, usually warm, avoided her gaze as she handed over the visitor pass. Juliet kept her chin high, her heels clicking a steady rhythm across the marble floor. She was wearing her armor, a sharp cream suit, impeccable makeup that hid the dark circles, and an expression of cool professional detachment. When she reached the executive floor, the tension was palpable. Assistants were whispering in huddled groups, scattering like startled birds when she stepped off the elevator. Ms. Juliet, Min-ho's executive assistant, a young woman named Ha-yoon, stood up abruptly. She looked terrified. You can't go in there. The CEO is. Is he in? Yes, but he gave strict orders not to be disturbed. He's been in there since last night. He hasn't slept, he hasn't eaten, and he fired 2 VPs this morning for breathing too loudly. Please, for your own sake. Juliet walked past her. I won't be long. She didn't knock. She pushed open the heavy double doors of the CEO's office and stepped inside. The room was vast, dominated by panoramic views of the city and dark, masculine furniture. Usually it was pristine. Today it was a wreck. Files were scattered across the floor. A crystal tumbler lay shattered near the wall, the stain of amber liquid seeping into the expensive rug. And standing by the window, staring out at the rain-slicked city, was Min-ho. He looked devastated. The pristine suit from last night was gone, replaced by dress pants and a white shirt that was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal the forearms she knew were covered in ink. His hair was messy, as if he'd been running his hands through it for hours. When he turned to face her, the exhaustion etched into his features stopped her in her tracks. He looked like a man who had survived a war, or perhaps one who was just starting it. You came, he said. His voice was a wreck, gravel and smoke. I came to bring you this. Juliet walked to the desk, refusing to let his appearance soften her resolve. She placed the envelope on the mahogany surface. My formal resignation, effective immediately. My firm will waive the cancellation fees. I'll brief my second-in-command on the expansion project, and she can take over starting Monday. Min-ho looked at the envelope, then up at her. He didn't reach for it. He didn't even blink. No. It's not a request, Min-ho. I'm recusing myself. It's the only way to salvage my professional reputation and your family's dignity." "My family's dignity?" He let out a harsh, dark laugh. He moved then, crossing the room with that prowling grace that always made the air feel thinner. "Do you think I care about dignity right now? Do you think I care about reputation?" "Well, you should, because I do." She held her ground as he stopped in front of her, the desk the only barrier between them. "I worked too hard to get where I am to be reduced to a scandal, to be the other woman in a tabloid drama." "You are not the other woman. You are the only woman." "Tell that to your fiancé. Tell that to the people whispering in your lobby." "I told you, the engagement is over." Jin seems to think otherwise, and based on what I saw last night, so does the rest of Seoul. Ho stared at her for a long moment, his jaw working. Then he reached into a drawer and pulled out a thick file folder. He tossed it onto the desk, right on top of her resignation letter. "Read it." "Ho, I don't want to." "Read it." Juliet hesitated, then opened the folder. It wasn't a business contract. It was a legal document, a formal dissolution of engagement between the Han and Park families. Her eyes scanned the dense legal Korean, picking out the key phrases: asset separation, stock transfer reversals. And then she saw the date. She froze. This is dated 4 months ago." "Keep reading, the second page." She flipped the page. It was a summary of a merger agreement between Yongsan Holdings and Park Industries, Jin's family's company, a merger worth billions. Status: canceled by Yongsan Holdings. Penalty fee: 150 billion won. Juliet looked up, her breath catching in her throat. "You paid the penalty." "I paid it personally, liquidated my private assets to cover it so the board wouldn't revolt." His eyes burned into hers. "I ended it, Juliet, 4 months ago, 2 months after I met you. I realized I couldn't stand in front of an altar and lie to a woman I didn't love, while my heart was already chasing a woman I couldn't have." "But," Jin said. Jin is humiliated. Her family is furious. They've been blocking the announcement, hoping they can pressure me into revering the decision before the shareholders find out. That's why she cornered us last night. That's why she said those things. She wanted to scare you off. She wanted to make you feel small so you run away and leave me with no other option but to go back to the safe choice." He walked around the desk, invading her space, stripping away her defenses with every step. "I lost a merger that would have secured my company's dominance for the next decade. I lost nearly a quarter of my personal net worth paying the exit penalties. I alienated one of the most powerful families in Korea. I did all of that 4 months ago." He stopped inches from her, his heat radiating through the space between them. "Does that sound like a man who is bored? Does that sound like a man looking for a distraction?" Juliet looked down at the documents, the ink blurring slightly. He hadn't lied. He had sacrificed billions. He had risked everything. And he had done it in silence, never telling her, never using it as leverage to get into her bed. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered. "Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything. I didn't want you to think I was buying your affection." His hand reached out, hovering near her face before dropping to his side, clenched in a fist. "I wanted you to choose me because you wanted me, not because of what I gave up." Ho, the resolve she had walked in with was crumbling, replaced by a terrifying hope. This is a mess." "It's a war," he corrected, "and I'm winning it. Or I was until you walked in here with a resignation letter." He reached past her, picked up the white envelope containing her resignation, and ripped it in half, then in half again. The sound was loud in the quiet room. "I don't accept it," he said calmly, letting the pieces fall to the floor. "You can't just." "I can. I'm the CEO. And I'm telling you that you are not leaving this company. You are not leaving this city. And you are certainly not leaving me. You're being irrational. Even if the engagement is over, the fallout from this." "Let it fall." He grabbed her shoulders then, his grip desperate. Let them talk. Let the stock price dip. I don't care. I built this company from the ground up and I can build it again. But I cannot build a life without you. He pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. He smelled of scotch and weariness, but underneath that, the familiar scent of him, clean and masculine, wrapped around her senses. Don't run from me, Juliet. Please, scream at me. Be angry that I didn't tell you sooner. Make me work for it. But don't run. Juliet closed her eyes, fighting the urge to lean into him. It was so easy to believe him when he was this close. So easy to forget that outside this room, a storm was gathering. I'm scared, she admitted, the truth slipping out. Min-ho, look at what happened last night. Look at what Soo-jin did if we do this. If I stay, I become the target. I'm the foreigner who stole the prince. They will tear me apart. Let them try. His voice dropped, vibrating against her skin. I told you last night, I protect what's mine. If anyone comes for you, Soo-jin, the press, my own board of directors, I will destroy them. You are under my protection now. I don't need a bodyguard, Min-ho. I need a partner. Can you be that? Can you handle me having my own life, my own business, without trying to control everything? I can learn, teach me. He pulled back enough to look at her, his dark eyes searching hers. Stay, just stay. Give me tonight. Let me take you to dinner. A real dinner. No business, no hiding, just us. Juliet looked at the torn paper on the floor, then back at the man who had burned $1 billion bridge just to be free enough to ask for her hand. Okay, she breathed. Okay, one dinner. The relief that washed over his face was transformative. The hard lines of tension smoothed out, and for a second he looked younger. He leaned in, and she knew he was going to kiss her. The office doors flew open. They didn't just open. They were thrown wide with an authority that suggested the person entering owned the air in the room. Min-ho stiffened instantly, his body shifting to shield Juliet before she even turned around. Standing in the doorway was an older woman. She was small, perhaps in her 60s, but she cast a shadow that seemed to fill the entire suite. She wore a traditional hanbok in severe gray silk, her hair pulled back in a severe bun held by a jade pin. Her face was a roadmap of Min-ho's, the same sharp cheekbones, the same intense eyes, but where Min-ho's face held passion, hers held only ice. Behind her stood 2 large men in dark suits. Security, but not building security, private muscle. Mother, Min-ho said. The word was not a greeting, it was a warning. Park Jae-yoon, the chairwoman of the board and the matriarch of the Han family, didn't look at her son. Her gaze was fixed solely on Juliet. It was a look of clinical assessment, like a scientist examining a bacteria under a microscope. So, the chairwoman said, her voice soft and melodic, which somehow made it more terrifying. This is the disruption. She has a name, Min-ho said, his voice dropping to a low growl. Juliet, and she is a guest in my office. She is a liability. The chairwoman stepped into the room, the guards staying by the door. I received a call from the Park family this morning. Soo-jin was quite distraught. She claims you embarrassed her publicly last night for the sake of your employee. I embarrassed her because she insulted the woman I love. The chairwoman sighed, a sound of profound disappointment. Love, you speak like a child, Min-ho. We built an empire on alliances, on strategy, on sacrifice, not on feelings. She finally stopped a few feet away, looking Juliet up and down with open disdain. Ms. Juliet, is it? I have looked into your background. Impressive. A self-made woman. You pulled yourself up from nothing. I respect ambition. Thank you, Juliet said, finding her voice. She refused to cower. I respect your company, Madame Chairwoman. Then you will understand that business transactions sometimes require adjustments. The chairwoman pulled a check from her sleeve. It was already written. This is a cashier's check for $5 million, tax-free. She held it out. Take it, return to New York, cancel your contract, and never speak to my son again. The room went deadly silent. Juliet stared at the check. It was more money than her firm made in 2 years. It was an insult wrapped in a fortune. Mother, put that away, Minho warned, stepping forward. I am speaking to the merchant, the chairwoman snapped, her eyes never leaving Juliet. Everyone has a price. You are a businesswoman, are you not? This is the best deal you will ever get for a failing asset. Juliet felt a cold anger settle in her stomach, steadying her shaking hands. She looked at the check, then looked the older woman in the eye. My company is not for sale, Juliet said clearly, and neither am I. You can keep your money. The chairwoman's eyes narrowed slightly. You think you can hold out for more, or perhaps you think you can marry into this family and take it all. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. Let me be clear, girl. You are a tourist here. You have a work visa that can be revoked with a single phone call. You have a family in New York, a mother with a heart condition, a younger brother applying for university loans. Do you know how easy it is to make problems for people halfway across the world when you have my resources? Minho moved. It was a blur of motion. 1 second he was beside Juliet, the next he was standing directly between them, his back to Juliet, facing his mother. His posture was terrifying, shoulders squared, head tilted, the predator finally surfacing. Get out. The chairwoman blinked, surprised by the venom in his tone. Excuse me. You threat her again. You mention her family, her visa, or her name, and I will forget that you are my mother. You would threat your own flesh and blood for a stranger. She is not a stranger. She is the woman I am going to marry. The declaration hung in the air, heavier than the silence before it. Juliet's breath hitched. Even the chairwoman looked stunned. You are bluffing, the old woman whispered. You wouldn't dare. The board would remove you. The family would disown you. You would lose everything. Minho stepped closer to his mother, towering over her. His voice was quiet, calm, and absolutely lethal. Then let them try. I built this company. I made you billions. But if you touch a single hair on her head, if you so much as look at her wrong. He leaned down, whispering the words like a curse. I will burn this entire company to the ground. I will sell off the assets, tank the stock, and hand our competitors the keys to the kingdom. I will turn Yongsan Holdings into ash before I let you hurt her. He straightened up, fixing his cuff, his eyes cold dead. Test me, mother, I beg you. The chairwoman stared at him for a long, agonizing moment. She looked for the bluff. She found only the promise of mutually assured destruction. Slowly, she stepped back. Her composure returned, but there was a crack in the armor now. She looked past Minho to Juliet, a look of pure venom. This isn't over, she said softly. Wars are not won in a single battle. She turned and walked out, her guards trailing behind her. The door clicked shut. Minho stood frozen for a second, his chest heaving. Then he turned around. The rage vanished from his face, replaced by frantic concern. He reached for Juliet, his hands trembling as they cupped her face, checking her for invisible wounds. Did she hurt you? Did she scare you? Juliet was shaking. The adrenaline was crashing, leaving her knees weak. She threatened my family, Minho, my mother. She won't touch them, I swear to you. He pulled her into his chest, burying his face in her neck. He was holding her so tight it almost hurt. I have a security team in New York already. I sent them an hour ago. Your family is safe. You are safe. Juliet pulled back, looking up at him. You told her we were getting married. I told her the truth. Minho, we haven't even had that dinner yet. I know. He rested his forehead against hers, closing his eyes. But we're going to need to skip dinner. Why? He opened his eyes. They were dark, serious, and full of a new kind of urgency. Because now that she knows she can't buy you, she's going to try to break you. And I need to get you somewhere she can't reach. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers. Come with me, Juliet. Run with me. Because the war just started, and I'm not letting you out of my sight.